Have you ever looked around and thought, why do they get it so fast, while I struggle? Or maybe you've been told you're not smart enough, just because you couldn't solve that one math problem that your friend can. But it doesn't mean that you lack intelligence. You've just been measuring it the wrong way. That's why we are here to explore the hidden sides of your mind. In this video, we'll walk through the 8 types of intelligence based on real psychological theory. We'll show you how your brain might be wired in a way that finally makes sense of your strengths. So stay with us. Let's find out together, which type of intelligence do you truly belong to? Linguistic intelligence. Have you ever been completely drawn in by someone just talking? We usually think of intelligence as solving math problems or acing science exams. But have you ever noticed how some people can tell stories that change how you feel? Or how certain lyrics feel like they were written just for you? It's a form of intelligence. Linguistic intelligence is the ability to use words to move people, to explain things clearly, and to express thoughts in a way that truly connects. People strong in linguistic intelligence are the ones who love playing with language, whether that's through writing, speaking, or even puns. Can explain complex ideas in a simple way, feel things deeply, and can put those feelings into words that make others feel them too. Let's think about your favorite name on a show or podcast who always makes you feel like cannot take your eyes off. They're using their brain in a way that's wired for language. In fact, studies using fMRI scans show that people with strong verbal linguistic skills activate more areas in Broca's area and Wernicke's area of the brain, the regions responsible for language processing and comprehension. So many of us were raised thinking that if we weren't good at math or science, we thought we weren't smart. But maybe you're someone who thinks through writing. Maybe your gift is in crafting arguments, making people laugh, telling stories, or just being that one friend who always knows the right thing to say. That's intelligence. Logical mathematical intelligence. Not everyone loves numbers. Some of us hear math and instantly headshot. But then, there are people who light up. You know, the kind who actually enjoy Sudoku and who see patterns in chaos. If that sounds familiar, you're probably wired with logical mathematical intelligence. People strong in this type of intelligence are natural analysts. They ask why a lot, not to be difficult, but because their brain needs to understand the system behind the scenes. Neurologically, people with high logical mathematical intelligence show more activity in the left prefrontal cortex, especially in areas tied to sequential reasoning, problem solving, and working memory. This means their brains are constantly sorting, categorizing, and linking information in a structured, logical way. Spatial intelligence. While some people understand the world through numbers or language, others see it deeply, vividly, in ways most people can't explain. They don't just think in words, they think in pictures, shapes, and motion. They mentally rotate objects, visualize maps, and build structures in their head long before they ever touch paper. Spatial reasoning is one of the strongest predictors of future success in STEM fields, especially engineering and technology. Maybe you were that kid who struggled with writing essays or solving equations. But give you a box of Legos, you'd build a castle. Hand you a pen and paper, you'd sketch your dream car. Yet somehow, that never counted as smart, did it? Spatial thinkers often grow up feeling like outsiders in traditional classrooms, where intelligence is boxed into test scores and bullet points. But the truth is, your mind was never designed to fit into rows of text. It was built to dimensions, for depth, for design. Musical intelligence. Musical intelligence isn't just about having perfect pitch or knowing how to play 12 instruments. It's about how deeply you understand sound, rhythm, tone, pattern, silence, and how naturally you connect with it. Maybe you found yourself tapping to a beat without realizing it. Or maybe music is the only thing that calms you down when your thoughts feel too loud. If that's you, your brain might be wired to experience life through sound. People with high musical intelligence show increased activity in the auditory cortex, as well as stronger connectivity between auditory and emotional processing regions like the amygdala and prefrontal cortex. Bodily-kinesthetic intelligence. For some of us, the clearest thinking doesn't happen when we're sitting still. It happens when we move. You know that feeling. when your mind is overwhelmed, but after a run, a dance, a walk, or just cleaning your space, everything suddenly becomes clear? That's your body doing what your brain couldn't. And if you've ever felt like movement is your form of understanding, then what you're tapping into is called bodily-kinesthetic intelligence. This type of intelligence isn't about how athletic you are. It's not about being the strongest, the fastest, or the most flexible. It's about how you use your body with awareness, coordination, and intentionality. People with high bodily kinesthetic intelligence process information best when they're doing something physical. They learn by trying, by touching, by moving, not by just sitting and absorbing. Studies reveal that people with high bodily kinesthetic intelligence show increased activity in the cerebellum and motor cortex, areas responsible for movement coordination, balance, and motor learning. These aren't just people who move well. They have a neural sensitivity to how the body moves through space, how it reacts to tension, balance, rhythm, and resistance. Interpersonal intelligence. Some of us have a different kind of intelligence. We don't calculate numbers or memorize facts better than others, but we can read a room the second we walk into it. We feel when someone's energy shifts, even if they don't say a word. We pick up the unsaid, the subtle, and it's not a guess, it's a knowing. If that feels familiar, you may be someone with strong interpersonal intelligence, the ability to understand and relate to people on a deep, often intuitive level. You probably know exactly what I mean. You're the one your friends vent to. You can sense tension during a group project before it even starts. You remember how people feel, not just what they said. You've always had this unspoken superpower. You notice people, really notice them. And while that may sound soft or simple, interpersonal intelligence is actually one of the most complex, layered, and essential types of intelligence we have. According to a 2018 study from the University of Chicago, people who score high in interpersonal intelligence show heightened activity in the medial prefrontal cortex and temporoparietal junction, the brain regions involved in empathy, social reasoning, and emotional regulation. In other words, your brain is wired to detect what others are feeling and respond accordingly, often faster than they can explain it themselves. This kind of intelligence is the backbone of strong leadership, therapy, teaching, customer service, and conflict resolution. It's not just about being nice, it's about understanding human behavior and navigating it with care. Intrapersonal intelligence. If interpersonal intelligence is the ability to read others, then intrapersonal intelligence is the quiet power of reading yourself. What do I truly feel right now? Why did that hurt more than it should have? Am I really okay or just pretending to be? If you've ever asked questions like these, not just out of curiosity, but out of a deep need to understand yourself, you may carry the gift of intrapersonal intelligence. People with high intrapersonal intelligence tend to be reflective, thoughtful, and deeply self-aware. They don't just move through life reacting, they observe their own thoughts, trace their emotions, and seek clarity from within. This doesn't mean they have it all figured out. Quite the opposite, actually. They're often the ones wrestling with big questions. The meaning of life, identity, purpose, fears, patterns, and how all of that fits together. They live not just in the world, but with themselves. And that's a rare kind of awareness. According to neuroscience research from Harvard Medical School, individuals with strong intrapersonal intelligence show increased activation in the default mode network, DMN, a set of brain regions active during self-referential thinking, daydreaming, and introspection. This means that when you're lost in thought, journaling, or even just sitting in silence processing life, your brain isn't zoning out. It's actually lighting up in a very intelligent, intentional way. After spending time in our inner world, let's now step outside into something bigger, older, and quieter than all of us, nature. For some of us, clarity doesn't come from talking it out or writing it down. It comes from walking barefoot in the grass, watching clouds move, listening to birds sing patterns we don't quite understand, but feel familiar. You breathe in, and suddenly, things feel lighter. You're grounded again. That's not just emotional or poetic. That's a sign of naturalistic intelligence. Maybe as a kid, you spent more time climbing trees than in front of a screen. Maybe you've always remembered the names of flowers, types of clouds, or the migration paths of birds, even if no one taught you. Maybe nature is the only place where you feel like yourself, like you belong. That's intelligence. Research shows that people who spend more time in natural environments, especially those with a sensitivity to nature's details, show improved attention regulation, emotional resilience, and pattern recognition. Why? Because when your brain is regularly exposed to natural stimuli, light, texture, movement, organic sounds, it becomes better at organizing chaotic information and spotting meaningful structure. This might explain why some of the greatest biologists, farmers, ecologists, herbalists, and wildlife photographers all have one thing in common. They see what most of us overlook. But there's one more kind, quieter than all the others, and maybe the most mysterious of all. It's the intelligence that shows up at 2 a.m. when the noise dies down and you're lying in bed, staring into the dark, not worried about tomorrow's to-do list, but wondering something deeper. Why am I here? What is all of this for? This is the realm of existential intelligence, the ability to think beyond the visible, to question the nature of existence, and to search for meaning in places others don't even look. People with high existential intelligence aren't necessarily religious or philosophical in the traditional sense. They're seekers. They question systems, challenge assumptions, and wrestle with the unanswerable. Not to be right, but to be true. They ask the kinds of questions. What does it mean to live a good life? Where do we go when we die? Or does it matter? These aren't abstract musings. For those wired this way, these questions feel urgent. Research suggests that spiritual and existential reflection activates the default mode network, the same part of the brain tied to identity, self-projection, and abstract thinking. This is the system that lights up when we imagine the future, or consider what it means to be human. In other words, when you're lost in deep thought, wondering about life, death, time, or eternity. Your brain isn't drifting, it's diving. So, which type of intelligence felt most like you? Maybe it was 1, maybe it was 3, maybe you saw a little of yourself in all of them. And that's the beauty of it. Intelligence isn't a box, it's a spectrum. You're not here to fit into a label.